The Angels got their guy. Ron Washington is the new Angels manager, and he's bringing years of experience to the Halos for at least the next 2 years. So how does the baseball world feel about this move? How do we, the Super Halo brothers, feel about this move? And how do you, the Locked On Everydayers, feel about this move? Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Angel content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's the best way to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by Jace Medical. You can empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, aka the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, we are finally a ship with a sail. No longer are we drifting without a manager. The Angels have finally signed their manager. They got their guy. Ron Washington signed a 2-year deal with the Halos, Mike. And so we're going to be talking about who he is and what he brings to the table, what the baseball world is saying about him and this move from the Halos, and what you guys are saying. Our Locked On Everydayers. We got some feedback. We got a great voicemail that we're getting to later on. And so I thought it would be great for us to start out with just how this all went down and get to know Ron Washington a little bit. So let's talk about that, Mike. First of all, Jon Heyman broke this news on Wednesday. The Angels confirmed it shortly thereafter. If you didn't know, the GM meetings are happening right now in Arizona. And so apparently they went out to a steakhouse in Arizona last night. So
did you also see that everybody's got like the stomach bug there as well? Everybody was in their hotel rooms because it was something was making them sick. So they said it went from the GM meetings to the GI meetings because they had a really big issue. But amongst the issue, the Angels made a really great decision. Go ahead.
They were able to do that. So Ron Washington will be the new Angels manager. He has a 2-year deal, Mike. We had heard that Buck Showalter was part of the consideration from nearly the beginning. As soon as he was removed as manager from the Mets, he had been part of the managerial search. But we'd also heard Torrey Hunter. We heard Darren Erstad, Ray Montgomery, the current Angels bench coach, Benji Gill, and Gary DiSarcina. But it came down to Ron Washington, and wasn't somebody who was named until way later on, but also somebody that you and I were a fan of.
Yeah.
He will be the 23rd Angels manager in Angels history.
Yeah. And so who is Washington? He played 10 years in the big leagues from 77 to 89, was a shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, joined the Mets as a minor league coach and a manager in 1993. He was hired by the A's in 1996 as a first base coach. He moved to third base as a third base coach in 2006. He replaced Buck Showalter as the manager in Texas and took over that team in 2007. Texas had 2 losing seasons before they got to second place in 2009. And then, of course, in 2010 and 2011, went to back-to-back World Series. They lost both to the Giants and the Cardinals. Johnny, Washington is the Rangers' all-time winningest manager with a record of 664 and 611 losses. He won 2 division titles. He earned a wild card berth, led the club to 4 straight 90-plus win seasons. 90 wins.
What's that like?
What's that like, right? He resigned in 2014, citing that he had been unfaithful to his wife and needed to take some time away to work on his marriage. So there's some character, there's some integrity there. I like that. Honest about what he did. And then he came to the A's as a special instructor, but was soon replaced by Mike Gallego in the third base position, the third base coach. He helped their infield and their defense a ton. And notably, something you've said pretty often on this show, he helped Marcus Semien in a big way to improve his defense and helping him to become the player that he is right now.
That's something I've been excited about regarding Ron Washington. Regarding Ron Washington is his infield ability and his ability to to coach the infielders. Mike, we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's something that really excites me as an Angels fan. His time with the Braves, Mike, he was hired in 2017 by the Braves as the third base coach. The same year, Perry Minasian was also hired by the Braves. So their tenures kind of cross over there. Players love working with him. And you can find some segments from MLB Network that we retweeted from Locked On Angels that can show you why the players love him. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. During the 2022 All-Star Game at Dodger Stadium, he told the LA Times that he wanted to manage again, no matter the circumstances of any prospective team that might call on him. He said, wherever the opportunity is, I'm going to build. And I love that. He said that's what he said at the All-Star Game at that time. So, Mike, how are we feeling about this hire? How are you feeling about this? What were your initial thoughts? Were you shocked, surprised? Were you excited? Tell me what you were thinking.
You mentioned it at the top of the show. He was somebody, Washington, that came in kind of at the last minute. But I think, and we're going to get into this in the next few segments, but there's something about this guy that I think is going to be so important for the Angels, but also so beautiful for these Angel players. I love Perry Minasian's quick decisions. We saw last offseason, he was the first one to make decisions to try to make this Angel team better. And I love that we didn't wait a whole long time after the World Series to try to find a manager. That one high five I would give to Perry in this instance is keep making those quick decisions. And yet it doesn't feel like it's a quick decision without thought.
It wasn't
like
rushed.
They had,
no.
They feel like they really put some time into this, sat down and talked with him and talked with other guys.
Yeah.
What I like about this too, is it wasn't the obligatory, like, hey, let's make sure that we talk to all of these guys so that it looks like we talk to all of these guys and then hire our guy. Like the rumor was Buck Showalter, right? Like, because they have a good relationship, but I love that he bucked the system and he went with somebody that at this point, Johnny, I'm super convinced that he's going to be really important for this Angel team and especially for these young guys. And so I like the move. It seems like the baseball world likes the move, and often baseball world can be torn and sometimes those talking heads can have opinions that I disagree with. But the universal feeling that the baseball world is feeling is what I'm feeling. Like, this is a really solid move for the Angels. It's a really solid move for this team. The one question I have is the 2-year deal. And I think a part of that is Perry's probably unsure about what's happening next. Again, we'll talk about that later on. But that's the only question I have. Is it doesn't feel like a commitment. It feels more like a commit. Right? Like, it doesn't feel like they're going all the way in, but I think it's a really smart move on Perry's part. I think it's a really smart move on this organization's part. And I think it's a really smart move because this guy is bringing the coaching experience where the Angels really lacked experience. And that was in focus and that was in their defense. And so I think that this is going to be a win-win for the Halos. What about you?
I'm glad that they brought in somebody with experience. I know he hasn't managed in 10 years, but here's the thing, Mike. I think that when you're able to take a team like the Rangers into their winning ways, about the time that they were kind of in the same place where we are, they were coming off some bad years there, and then it took a couple of years for them to turn it around. And then they had a mix of young and veteran players who got to the World Series back-to-back. I'm excited for this move. I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm glad it's somebody with experience. I think I would have been fine if it was a new young manager as well, but this actually gives me a lot of confidence in who this team can be going into 2024 and 2025 beyond that, since he has a 2-year deal. But gosh, I've just been watching clips of Ron Washington coaching and doing drills and working with guys.
Yeah.
And it's won me over. And what else has won me over is the fact that the baseball world has a lot to say about him as well. And we'll get into all of those comments coming up next. But Mike, for me, this is Perry's guy. Perry got to hire a manager. Now, I know that approval comes down to the head honchos and Artie Moreno, but at the same time, I think this is it. And so it's up to Artie, or I should say it's up to Perry to be able to communicate a plan and give this team the knowledge that it needs to succeed on the field. And that is filtered through Ron Washington and his coaching staff. And there actually is some rumors about the coaching staff that we'll get into as well that have me pretty excited. But again, you were able to hire somebody and make the decision for yourself. It wasn't somebody who was already there or kind of we'll just go with Phil.
Sure.
I like the fact that he brings experience, and there's a lot of good things said about him, and there's definitely some concerns, I think, on the part of Angels fans that we'll get into as well. Coming up on Locked On Angels, what does the baseball world think of this move? And what are those names attached to the rumored coaching staff that Ron Washington seems to want to bring in? Well, Mike and I are going to get to all of that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Jace Medical. There is certainly a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. It feels like everything is kind of chaotic, although I just think that we see it more with social media. But it is a reminder that there is a lot of unrest and there is a lot of weather circumstances that are happening, and hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes. And often those types of things can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. And that's why you need a Jace case. A Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case. I love this idea. And you can add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. So let's say that you get these 5 essential antibiotics. You could also add insulin if you struggle with, diabetes, those types of things. And so Jace is on your side. And here's how you can get a Jace case. Fill out a simple online form. In some cases, you can jump on a phone call and talk to one of their board certified physicians. Jace handles everything for you, which, Johnny, I love that because I'm Mr. Convenience and I just need everything to fall into place. And so with Jace, they handle all of the details for you, from the online evaluation to a licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. They're on your side. So go to jacemedical.com. You can enter our promo code Locked On at checkout and you'll get $20 off your order. So you're welcome for that. Again, the promo code's Locked On when you visit jasemedical.com.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, this week was GM week here on Locked On Angels. But of course, there was some breaking news, and we got to talk about the Angels' new manager today. However, that didn't stop you from sending your suggestions for some moves that the Angels could make in the offseason in terms of free agent signings, possibly some trades. So we're going to go into those tomorrow and see what you suggested. And we would love to hear from you if you haven't done so already. So again, reach out to us on social media, comment below the YouTube video. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what the Angels should do for the offseason on Friday.
So how'd the baseball world react to the Angels signing Ron Washington as their manager? Well, Jeff Fletcher from the OC Register said that Perry Minasian said a day earlier that he was looking for a manager who could, quote unquote, command a room. John, you and I have talked about that a bit, and draw respect in the way that, and I love this, Bruce Bochy did when helping the Rangers to the World Series title this year. There's been this lack of respect, and I would even say someone who doesn't command the room since Sosha was there, because Brad Ausmus certainly didn't command the room, and Joe Maddon didn't. And with Phil Nevin, it just didn't feel like there was any sort of command. It felt like it was, I'm going to get angry because I feel like I need to be angry right now.
Sure.
And most of the time it was these guys are doing great, right? Even though the results weren't great. There are certain people that have had that have earned different things. Minasian said at the GM meetings on Tuesday, whether it be through their coaching style or whether it be through their playing style, when they walk in the room, you know that they're there. When they speak, people listen, and that's something that we're trying to identify. I love what Perry had to say. Johnny, the Braves GM said this about Washington: he's great, tremendous, outstanding. You're not going to find anyone better. And he said he's got the off-the-charts ability to lead. That guy walks into a room, it's over. He's just got it. He's so special. He's been in baseball, around baseball since 2000, been working with baseball players earlier than that as well. And I've never been around someone like this before. He said the Angels got a lot better today. He's a guy who's won, high energy. The level of respect is off the charts. Someone that the players will go through a wall for. I guarantee you, as word is spreading today, Angel players are incredibly excited and Braves players are incredibly sad. I love those words, Johnny. And he would know because Wash has been in Atlanta for the last few years as a bench coach and as a third base coach and has really had a significant impact on those players and on those fans.
Yeah, our friend Sarah Valenzuela from the LA Times, she reported one sports agent who spoke on the condition of anonymity. I think it's a great hire. Just from what I'm hearing from some of the players, they're all excited. I can see it being a positive thing for their free agent market. So that's a really big statement right there, that guys actually want to come and play for the Angels because they hired Ron Washington. And there was a question on our YouTube comments about, we talked about it with the managers, like, why would anybody want to come and manage here? Well, now there's some incentive to come and play here because you get to play for Ron Washington, and players, not just with the Braves, but all over MLB know how significant that can be.
Yes, and remember when we had that conversation about why would anybody want to come here to dumpster fire? This is what leaders do. And Ron Washington is a leader. And look what happens with leaders. He finds people who are like, I'll play for that guy.
Yeah,
I'll go to that place. I want to be a part of that. What if we could turn it around, right? And now all of a sudden, with just the hiring of Ron Washington, the narrative has changed. And it's not just Angel fans, it's baseball people.
Yeah,
that has changed. And
players, agents. Yeah,
that's significant, right? It's not just Angel fans, building me up and letting me down, right? We're not getting buttercupped this time. This is a baseball feeling. Even Ben Verlander said, wow, love this for the Angels and love this for Walsh.
Hey, Jeff Fletcher also shared a quote from San Francisco Giants president of baseball operations, Farhan Zaidi, and he worked with Washington with the A's back in 05 and 06. He said, I love Wash. As someone who had a ton of experience in baseball, he kind of always took the time to explain his perspective to me and things that I didn't really have a grasp on. And then he said, he's the guy on the bottom of the totem pole in the front office. And I think that speaks a lot about his character. And then our buddy Jake over at Locked On Braves, host of Locked On Braves, he tweeted, hate it, but really hopeful he can turn that team around. Glad he's getting another shot at managing. I don't think I ever imagined myself getting emotional after losing a coach who wasn't even the manager, but Wash was different. And then Jake also said that he was really happy for the Super Halo Bros and Angel fans. So that's exciting as well. And then finally, Mike, David O'Brien, who covers the Braves for The Athletic, said it's hard to overstate Ron Washington's importance to the Braves over the past 7 years. More than just a typical coach, he was a motivator, a clubhouse and dugout mood setter, ever positive but honest with players, and with more energy at 71 than many 21-year-olds. Finally, of course, Locked On MLB Prospects host Lindsey Crosby, our good buddy, said, BRB, we're buying shares in Zach Neto's 2024 Gold Glove campaign. So I love that because, yes, an area where the Angels defense or the Angels really struggled last year was their defense. We talked about the 91 unearned runs, and this is something that Ron Washington brings to the table, Mike, and I think it's going to be very significant for these young players. Imagine Zach Neto learning under him, Logan O'Hoppe learning under him, Nolan Schanuel. This is going to be a great thing for those young guys. Which of these quotes stands out to you the most, Mike?
There's a lot we could talk about here, and I know that sometimes some of these quotes can feel ethereal or ambiguous, like they're kind of in the air, right? But all of it goes back to the impact that Washington has had on the players that he's been around. And a big piece of that is because he's really good at fundamentals, and he's really good at focus, and he's really good at making sure that teams are in it and their heads in the game. Johnny, you retweeted a video from the MLB Network that had Washington doing some ground balls, and he had a little tiny glove. And what I loved about that was he's got a major league ball player in front of him, and he's hitting ground balls to him, and he's telling him, you got to pick it before it hits the ground. You got to pick it before it hits the ground. And then he hits it, and he goes, you didn't do it. You didn't do it.
Yep.
You didn't do it. Okay, you did it then. And then he switched with him, and he said, hit it to me. And so he showed him how to do it.
Yeah.
John, all of that is culture building. Because what he's teaching them, and it's the bottom of the totem pole quote that really gets to me. What he's teaching them is that I'm no better than how I'm performing. I'm no better than you. I'm no better than, right? Like, he's very humble when it comes to how he approaches people and how he approaches the game. And that's the thing that this Angel team needs. They haven't had anybody that has said, here's who we are. Here's our identity. Here's how we're moving forward. And this is a type of manager. This is the type of move that brings in all of those things. It brings in the guardrails. It brings in the boundaries and says, here's the sandbox that we're playing in. So let's go build something great.
Alex Anthopoulos, the GM of the Braves, saying that the Angels got a lot better today, says everything that I want to know about Ron Washington, because this is where you start. You have to start at the top. And the fact that, again, Perry was able to hire somebody to lead this team is really important, Mike, because we've been pretty safe with Perry. I think we've been very nice to Perry.
Yeah.
But that's because he didn't hire Joe Madden, and he didn't hire the coaching staff, and he didn't hire Phil Nevin.
Yeah.
And now I think the gloves are off a little bit. Like, okay, dude, you got your guy, so let's go. Let's do your thing.
Yep.
But the fact that Anthopoulos says the Angels got better means a whole lot to me. And that's without doing any roster moves yet. That's without signing any free agents yet. So this is very significant to me, the fact that the GM of the Braves said that the Angels got better.
All right, what do the everydayers think, Johnny? Here's some thoughts from our Locked On Everydayers on Twitter. Nick Castle said, I'm so excited. Best manager we've had in a while, in my opinion. Your opinion is correct, Nick. Really think he's going to do wonders for that infield. This has me even hoping for Rendon.
Yeah.
Woo! How about that? Not a lot from Rendon, but it's better than zero, is what he said.
But that's significant too, because
yes,
did Rendon not want to play for Phil Nevin? I mean, like, was that the tension there? I'm not excusing his terrible attitude that he had all through the season and whatnot, but that's a poor reflection on that locker room culture for him to be able to run around and make his comments. It was allowed. Yeah. So I think that Ron's not going to put up with that. I tweeted because Ron Washington looks like Teddy Long from WWE, who used to make people wrestle The Undertaker. So if Rendon gets out of line, he's going one-on-one with The Undertaker.
Yes. Love that.
Hey, Ken on Twitter said, OMG, teaching fundamentals. No matter how good you are, you've got to work to get better. I'm so psyched to think about the guys like Neto and Schanuel just eating this up. And then Stephen Lane said, this is the type of manager this young team needs. A coach that's going to hold guys accountable for the fundamentals. Can't wait for spring training. And then, Mike, we got a voicemail from one of our favorite Locked On Everydayers, Tracy in Henderson, Nevada, that I think he brings up some interesting points. So we'll take a listen to his voicemail and then respond after.
Hey, guys, this is Tracy from Henderson, Nevada, obviously an everydayer, calling on the hiring of Ron Washington. I was hoping to see the Angels go to a younger manager, one that can really relate to the youth movement that the Angels are seeing from the middle part of last year and going into spring training. That's going to be a young team. You know, Washington he's older than Joe Madden and older than Buck Showalter, and a little bit concerned about that. But that being said, I wish him the best. I hope the Angels are successful with him. I'm anxious to see what the coaching staff is going to be that he's going to put together. And I hope this is the impetus that he can do what a Dusty Baker or Bruce Bochy did. So I'm wishing him all the best. Thanks, guys.
Tracy, thank you for your voicemail, and thank you for bringing up those points, because I think that you bring up some concerns that I feel like everybody might have. And that's, he's older than Joe Madden. He's older than Buck Showalter. Is he going to work well with his front office? And that, I think, is a very good question. And then there's the idea of like the Angels and the youth movement. Obviously, we have a lot of young players that we're excited about. Mike, you and I were of two minds coming into this managerial search. One was hire a young manager like Torrey Hunter or Darren Erstad to grow with the team, or go the veteran route and have an experienced manager guide these young guys along. And you alluded to it earlier, that clip of him working with Ozzie Albies. Here's some things that Ron Washington says in the video that fired me up. I think it fired you up. Here's some quotes here. He said, this is after he was demonstrating the drill. He said, that's the thing about me. I'll teach it, but I can get out there and do it. My whole job is to make sure that they play. I'll worry about the things that don't work. And then he said, I'm your mechanic on duty. You play, man. And then finally he said, you go way over there to get a ball, or you dive way over there and spin and throw the guy out. I can't teach that, but I can teach you to catch a ball that a pitcher just made a pitch. That's an out. I want that out. Now that's an attitude I can get behind.
Yeah.
With Ron Washington, it's that attitude that excites me to see him work with the young guys. And there's even a clip of Albie saying, "This is an exercise I never did before until I met Wash," and so that really stood out to me as well.
Yeah, John, I love everything that Wash is saying, and I know the tension that Tracy brings up is a tension that some Angel fans and Locked On Everydayers are feeling. But I think that what this team needs is to be whipped into shape, quite honestly, and to bring in a young manager who maybe didn't have that experience. Again, we were excited about Erstad. We were excited about a Torrey Hunter. Those names, I love those names. However, this is a team that, and maybe that's where the 2-year contract comes in. This is a team that needs to be whipped back into shape, and the culture needs to be drastically changed. And I think that Ron Washington is the type of guy to bring that. He's different than Joe Madden because Joe Madden has kind of an aloofness about him. And I think he's different than Buck Showalter because Buck Showalter has been around the block for a bit, but Buck seems to do well when he has a great payroll and some people around him. That's not always the case. I get that, but Buck is a very different manager than Washington. Buck's very
detail oriented.
Yeah, he's very Bill Belichick, right?
Yeah.
He's very much like, yeah, that's it, right? Wash has got some personality, and he's somebody that I really think that this team is going to respect. And so as much as I would have loved to see maybe a young guy, I think that these young guys on the Angels, they still need to develop, and they need somebody that's going to help them develop. And so after 2 years, Wash retires and they bring in a young guy. He's going to inherit a really talented team.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be great in the fundamentals. They're going to be great in their focus, and they're going to be great in development. And that's what this team needs. And so that's why I think this move is a really great move.
For me, Mike, and I've been saying this for a while, I want the Angels to get a manager that the players are ashamed to lose a game for.
Yep.
And to me, Washington will be that guy, working with Neto, O'Hoppe, guiding those young guys along, and seeing him work with them. That prospect gets me really excited because he challenges the young guys to be better. He whips them into shape, like you said. And we've said this before. Phil Nevin always said, like, hey, the guys come in here, they prep every day, and they do all their stuff. But it's like, but what does that prep look like?
Yeah.
And we know that with Washington, it's not going to be just like, let's warm up. Let's throw some balls back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Like, he seems to be a guy who's not going to let guys off the hook. And then you mentioned young guys like Torrey Hunter coming in to manage this team. Well, speaking of the coaching staff, Bob Nightingale of USA Today, he reported that Washington is expected to bring on Chili Davis as the hitting coach.
I love that.
He was the hitting coach for the A's, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Mets. He's an Angels great, of course.
Yep.
Torrey Hunter at first base coach, Eric Young Sr. at third base coach, and he's previously been the bench coach for the D-backs, the Rockies, and the Braves. Clint Hurdle as the bench coach, longtime manager of the Rockies and the Pirates. And then Ryan Goins as the infield coach. He recently retired in October after 8 seasons, and he's making his coaching debut. Thank you to our friend Andrew from Angels Top Place for sharing the background on all those guys. Mike, all that's missing is the pitching coach, and my suspicion is that the Angels front office would like to have a little more involvement in that because they need someone who can notice issues, notice trends, relay important data, and then communicate well with the pitchers. And then considering that 2-year deal that you brought up, does Perry have an unknown option for an extra year like Epler did? Because we didn't know Epler had one, and then for some reason the Angels exercised it, and then they fired him anyway.
Right.
Like you alluded to earlier, perhaps if Wash is only here for 2 years, and remember, he's 71, maybe he didn't want to manage for 3 to 5 years. So see how that shakes out. But with someone like Torrey Hunter on the coaching staff potentially, and him working under Washington, I think that's a great learning experience for him. And now that we've got our manager, Mike, we may have our coaching staff. Now what?
John, I think it's a good step in the right direction, but the thing that is going to come up, and people are going to say this, and when I say people, it'll be some of those annoying fans are going to be like, well, Artie is still the owner,
It
right?
already happened, Mike.
Yes. and I get it, guys. I get it, but this is the thing that we have to really pay attention to is they've really wiped the slate clean, with all of the coaches and all of the training staff,
right.
and they're starting fresh, and so this feels like Artie is the most hands off that he's ever been, and I think that this is a good move, and bringing in those supposed names to be managers, coaches on this team. I'm excited about that, and so I think Artie is a bit hands off right now, which is a really good thing.
He let Perry hire his guy. It's not a former Angel just because they were part of the 0-2 team. It's not Buck Showalter just because he was coming from the Mets. Like, Perry got his guy. And like I said, we've let Perry slide in a lot of areas because he hasn't had his guy. But Mike, this year, me personally, I'm going to have my thumb on Perry Minasian because you got your guy. So if you want cohesion and good communication and a game plan that you've been wanting to put in place for a while, you hired this man, so make it work. And for me, it's put up or shut up at this point because you were able to make your selection. And I think Perry really wanted Ron Washington, especially based on his comments that he said the other day about needing a manager who can command a room and has earned that right. So that's where we stand right now. We had to get a manager. Next to that, Mike, free agency. Let's get going.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. If you want to reach out to us, please reach out to us on social media. Johnny, tell them how.
You can get at us at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. And if you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube on today's show and comment below the video. It's the best way to get in touch with us. We love responding to your comments down there. Let us know how you're feeling about this move and share any potential free agent moves you might have. Because, Mike, on tomorrow's show,
it's Fan Mail Friday, so we're going to take all of your ideas and talk them through. We're going to put some of your trades in the trade simulator. Going to be a really fun show, and we would love for you to come and join us tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
That's going to be a lot of fun, so bring your suggestions to the table, and we'll try our best to get them in tomorrow's show. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Were you proud of me? I said Marcus Simeon and not Trevor Simeon.
You did avoid Alex Anthopoulos, though. I noticed that.
Those big